Okay, Dustin, are you there?
Present.
And then Jewel? Beth?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, is Beth on?
I am, yes.
And you can hear okay?
Yes.
And then just real quickly, this is Jewel. I want to introduce Beth Copeland. She is with us at TAF. And then I asked her to kind of run with this issue. The reason why I did is she was corporation counsel for the city of Cocobello. And the city of Cocobello, while she was in that position, had a tornado hit its area too. So she's gone through these processes and has a lot more experience with it than I do. So I thought it would be better so that she help the town and advise on these issues. And so, Tom, to be concerned about this, I'm not building you for two attorneys, it's just that. So, just wanted to let you know that she's on there.
Tom, do you want to do the prayer?
You can if you want to.
Okay, we'll begin. Welcome to the special meeting scheduled Tuesday, April 14th at 7. Tom Worthen will do our invitation for us.
Dear God, as we gather this evening, we thank you for the mercy you have shown on our town. We thank you for the sparing any major injuries or deaths in our last tornado event. We thank you for everyone that pitched in to try to help our family here in town. This council asks for strength, courage, and wisdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I'll now call the meeting to order. The meeting is in order. We will do a roll call vote of who is present. And please state how you're present. Dustin Stanley.
Present via phone.
Thank you. Jessica Hester.
Present via phone.
Thank you. Jeff Cook.
Present via phone.
Thank you. Mr. Worthen.
Present, physical location, Town Hall.
And Shane Williams is present in the physical location of the Government Center. We'll go to the first item on the agenda, which is under new business as a tornado response. The council has been provided a copy of the Town of Mooresville Local Emergency Disaster Proclamation. Have all the council members had a chance to review this? It came in late in the day, so I want to make sure you've had time to review.
I was just handed it by Diane and I'm reading it now.
Okay.
I can't hear Tommy again. Can he get her phone in front of me?
Hey, we're not using my flip phone now. Come on. Can you hear me now?
We're gonna have to go back to smoke signals with you, I think, Tommy. Yeah, I can't hear you. Sounds far away.
I was trying to say 6 feet from everyone except for Shane, and I was trying to be 22 feet away from him.
Understand.
So Mr. Worthen is reviewing the proclamation. Have other members of the council had a chance to do so?
This is Dustin Stanley. As we received it about 10 minutes ago, I was reading through it just now.
Okay, well, I'll give you a couple of minutes to continue to read through it.
Jay, while we're doing that, can you kind of give us just a rundown of what that proclamation consists of?
I think think what I would do there is ask the Attorney Copeland to do that for us. Would you mind doing that for us?
Okay.
Sure, I'm happy to. Overall, the proclamation authorizes the town council to declare a local disaster emergency. The benefit of doing that is it allows you to implement the comprehensive emergency plan that was adopted by the town council back in 2005. What I have kind of explained to Shane is that it essentially triggers what has the process has already begun. And I'm hearing a lot. I'm sorry, I'm hearing a lot of back noise. So I'm looking
Yeah,
for
I
hearing
see.
me. Okay. Are you guys hearing me very well?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you, but there's still that background noise, but go ahead.
It formalizes what you've already started to do following the tornado, and it allows, by declaring this local emergency, we can go not only, if the town believes that you need assistance with the cleanup or any redevelopment, we can start the process of contacting the county and the state in doing that. But this is kind of that first step. The council has to declare the local emergency.
Okay.
And the reason it's called a proclamation is because the ordinance that was adopted by your town council in 2005 required a proclamation versus a declaration. Communities call it different things, but in essence, it's providing the same initial step that and we may be requesting assistance from other communities.
Okay. I appreciate that. I just wanted the listeners that are going to be tuned into Facebook to understand exactly what it's consistent of, why.
Sure, of course, and this would be a public document. So once it's executed by council, actually before it's executed by council, but once it's executed, this would be a document that if somebody requested, or you could post it on the town's Facebook page if you wanted to do that
Okay.
independently.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Is there any reason we shouldn't do this, in your opinion? Attorney Copeland?
No, there's none.
Shane, if I could say something.
Even if the town council decides that you can handle the cleanup within the town's own resources, this is still beneficial and prudent to do.
Okay, we have the EMA director here with us. Would you mind stating your name? And he just wants to say a few words.
Mark Toomey, the Morgan County Emergency Management Director. Shane, I'd reviewed the emergency plan that town of Mooresville has with Ben Esterline and Chief Metzger. And at that time, they had appointed a emergency manager for the town of Mooresville. And there's quite a few things in that document that they don't have the authority to do. And I would suggest probably before you go by that you get with Aaron Rowe and go through that document. When Ben and I looked through it, it could be trimmed down to about a page because the county has an emergency management plan and the town can as well. But he was stating in there the authority that he had to call the state or FEMA, and he doesn't have that authority. Once the town's resources have been exhausted, then that goes to the county resources, and then my office contacts the state for resources from the state. But there's an Indiana code that lays that out pretty much step by step how that works. So my suggestion would be to review that document and trim it down on the things that are and aren't in the Indiana code.
Could you hear that, Attorney Copeland?
I did not. I only heard part of it. I heard him comment that the town has to use its resources before it goes to the county and then to the state. That is the proper process, yes, which is why I think it's prudent for the town council to discuss the extent of the emergency at this point, since they're all
basically,
Yeah, Jeffco's here it is. Anybody in town hall talking, they're gonna need to talk to their phone, because I can't hear you.
okay.
And it might be helpful if the other not participants knew, because that would eliminate background noise. It's only if you're speaking up, have to be unmuted.
Would you mind kind of repeating what you said? And I'm sorry to make you do that.
Oh, that's okay. We had reviewed the Town of Mooresville's emergency plan, myself and Ben Esterline, who is the liaison between the county and the state, and the District 5 liaison, and with Chief Metzger. And at that time, we had went through and said that they had laid out authorities under, I believe at that time, Chief Viles. And he'd hired an emergency manager. And we told him at that time that the document they laid out didn't correspond with the Indiana code, and that the authority that he set forth, they had no authority to do. So there's several things that they had in there, like the emergency manager for the town of Mooresville had the authority to call state resources, and they don't. There's quite a bit of that document that doesn't meet the Indiana code that needs to be reviewed. So my suggestion would be to get with Ben Esterline and Aaron Rowe, who is in charge of emergency management for the state of Indiana, and pare that down to where it does meet the Indiana code. And you can refer to the Morgan County Comprehensive Emergency Plan that was written and approved by the state of Indiana. And you can mirror that plan with what authority, who has what authority, and what rights to do things and how that plays out.
You do suggest.
This is Beth.
Go ahead, Beth.
I agree. I read the plan. It was drafted 15 years ago, so it definitely needs some typing. It needs some updating. I would not allow the council to take any steps beyond today that would be inconsistent with Indiana code. Really, the purpose of this is more just for the council to acknowledge if they want to declare a local emergency. And if they do, we take the next step in deciding what is the extent of the damages. Can we handle those in-house? And if not, then we would go to the county at that point for assistance. But I agree with this. The town can't go straight to the state and ask for assistance. There are other issues with the plan, but I think that is almost a matter to be discussed by the council once we get past this emergency. But we're sitting in the middle of an emergency that the council needs to act in order to get resources in order to clean up the downtown area. And once that happens, then absolutely, I think we need to update this plan. I'm not sure if it's been touched in the last 15 years or not.
Tom Worthen, the plan was brought to us 2 years ago for review, and at that time we were all given copies of it. As we started to go through it, there were a lot of things there that did date back and kind of date this. At that time, when asked if he wanted to place it back on the agenda, that is when our fire chief, who had presented it to begin with, did elaborate on this could be pared down to one page. So that said, yes, it has not been reviewed, I don't think, since '05, even though it says that it will be reviewed annually within it. There are some things in this proclamation, I guess, that I do have a couple of questions on. I'm assuming, did you write it, Attorney Copeland?
I did, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Based on our comprehensive emergency plan, it gives a deadline of 7 days and then to be extended. But this doesn't really put a close of the proclamation. It says that it's making it effective Wednesday, April 15th, and continuing until such time that the council declares otherwise. That does kind of go against the 7 days. The next thing is it talks about...
Can I answer that?
Yes, please.
a local emergency without the town council's permission.
Okay.
But his authority only extended for 7 days, and then it ended, and council needed to adopt this proclamation in order to extend it. The council president did not do that. He did not independently issue a local disaster. Instead, we've gone ahead and thought it would be better if council council voted on this in order to show uniformity that council was supporting that this decision occurred. So that 7 day is not for a council decision, it's only if the president did it by himself.
Okay, the authorized essential construction and services in order to mitigate and remediate damage from the local disaster, is that on public property only?
No, that could authorize, that is going, the intent of that sentence was to address the email that I believe all council received last night from a cell phone power company. And there are certain public construction measures that may need to be taken on a temporary basis in order to ensure that your constituents are maintaining essential services. So if towers were knocked down that need to be temporarily erected before they have an opportunity to go to the BZA and request reconstruction, this authorizes the council to allow those construction measures to take place to make sure that your constituents don't lose essential services. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think the way that letter, and that's how I really learned about this declaration of an emergency disaster was through that email, it's also asking to go outside of what was already granted in past variances as far as height. Can we override our UDOs and say, yeah, build it however you want to, and not take any consideration for the findings of fact from our BZA?
No, absolutely not, and that's not the intent of that sentence whatsoever. The intent of that sentence is okay, let me take a step back. The gentleman who sent the email last night acknowledged that they could put up a temporary tower. This council has the authority to authorize in state of an emergency. He then went on to say, well, I would prefer if you would just allow me to erect a 120-foot tower in that one location versus two 60-foot towers where they already have been. You're absolutely right. The council does not have the authority to go ahead and grant that request. He would need to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals and file a petition in order to get that request. The sentence in this proclamation only allows him to erect a temporary tower to make sure your constituents don't lose cell service, or not your public officials, your law enforcement, all these persons that need cell phone service in the middle of an emergency. I have to think you would want them to be able to maintain that connection, but it's not allowing them to construct a permanent tower where one has been destroyed. Your BZA may decide it doesn't want one in that location at all anymore.
Just to correct the record, we're talking about PDS Wireless, which is internet service, but it's also heavily relied on right now, especially during COVID. We have at-home schooling, we have at-home work, we have all kinds of things going on that we might not otherwise have going on.
My apologies, I misspoke.
That's
Internet
okay.
service.
That's okay, I just wanted to correct the record. Could I ask the EMA director one question? You're supportive of the proclamation of the emergency. in so much as proclaiming an emergency, as long as the town council goes through the proper steps through the county.
Right, I just want to make sure that you understand that,
Can you
that
come
the
to the mic?
definition,
I'm sorry.
that the definition of a declaration of emergency, I've got some documents for you from the state of Indiana that explains what the definition of that is. And you can certainly declare a state of emergency but most generally that's declared when you've exhausted all your resources during a disaster. Case in point, the 2008 flood in Martinsville. They had exhausted all the resources they had in the city of Martinsville, and they had to call in the state, which called in FEMA. So, whatever your policies are, I guess you can declare whatever you want, but that doesn't change whether you get aid from the state or FEMA. We came up and did all the damage assessments for the buildings, and those were turned in through WebEOC to the state of what buildings were damaged and the extent of damage. And the other county had damage was Johnson County, so the state will review that. There is no threshold from FEMA anymore on damage. It used to be when you meet a certain dollar amount, then that's when FEMA stepped in, but that's not the case anymore. It takes the governor to step in and go, I'm declaring a disaster in this county or this area. So I get you can declare a disaster, but it doesn't really change if you're going to get any assistance or not. That's declared by the governor.
Are you against declaring a disaster?
No, it doesn't matter to me. My whole job was to come in, do damage assessments, give advice if you need it, and make sure that everything gets turned in to the state. So if there is enough damage and the governor wants to declare emergency, then he has the information from my office to do that. So everything was reported. And we have 30 days from the date this happened to get everything in. I just told Tim that if there's any other damage that I haven't seen, to call me. We'll be happy to come out and do an assessment and get it entered within that 30-day time frame. Because I want to make for sure we get every bit of damage that's happened entered.
Does that include residential?
Absolutely.
And my argument in support of the council doing this now is that it gives you a leg up. That way, if we waited until all of your independent resources were exhausted, and then we decided to have a special meeting, and then council decided, I don't know how many weeks down the line that we're talking about, but this gives you a leg up that even if you don't end up having to request assistance from the county or ultimately the state, it doesn't matter. But by having this in place, if we do need to take that step, you guys have already acted in your official capacity to authorize this to occur without having to have a meeting later down the road. Especially considering we're in the middle of a pandemic and none of us really, it's a very uncertain time. So because there's no downside to doing this early, it gives you a firmer foundation to move forward.
So does this limit us to is this a separate paragraph here that's talking about the historical downtown, or is this comprehensive emergency declaration proclamation for all of any damage that's within the civil town of Mooresville?
The proclamation is for all areas that were hit by the tornado. All damaged areas that were destroyed, well, not only by your tornado, if you had other areas that were damaged during the storm as a whole, even if it wasn't necessarily in the line of the tornado. That particular section about the historic downtown is just closing down that most hit, my understanding is, one of the hardest hit areas in your town to try to keep people safe while you have buildings that are not structurally sound.
Okay.
And it actually pairs up with what your police department issued. I helped your police department last week issue a press release that requested people not visit that section of downtown, and this really just re-emphasizes
So we're just duplicating what they've already done.
Duplicating or re-emphasizing.
Okay. So again, back to the authorized essential construction and services in order to mitigate. Are we spending money to do this, or are we just saying, yes, you can do this? I mean, is this saying when it says authorized essential construction, can we make decisions for construction that will cost the taxpayers money?
We make decisions that would cost the taxpayers money. The intent of that was not for public infrastructure, but private. You have your own, this proclamation was not intended to usurp the public bidding laws. And there are certain mechanisms in place that are required to be followed when public dollars are used. This was intended, if you get a request to somebody from an internet provider, something that's considered an essential service, to be able to authorize that without having to jump through a bunch of hoops.
Well, okay.
Construction, and I don't know what would be, I'm trying to think globally here, what would be construction from using public dollars. Are any of your public buildings
Absolutely.
destroyed?
None of them are. Our infrastructure is in decent shape. We have a building that's hurt that I think our insurance company's already looked at. That's why I'm trying to wrap my head around what this is actually going to accomplish for the citizens of Mooresville. And you're saying that it's just giving us a heads up or a leg up on the process. Should we run out of money for public projects? Correct?
Well, I guess I'm trying, okay. I think, are we focusing on that one sentence about essential construction, or are we talking about the proclamation overall?
The proclamation overall. If you can give me that, and I apologize, like I said, I just got it, so I'm trying to understand this. It wasn't placed. I didn't know what it is.
Yeah, the overall intent of this proclamation is for the town council to declare that there is an emergency within the town, and to give you, I guess what you just said, a head start if internal resources are used, and now we need to request assistance from the county or the state.
It also allows,
Sorry.
that's all right, it also allows us to be able to help our citizens rebuild quicker, not skirting the law, but giving them permission, like in the case of the internet service provider, it gives them permission to go ahead and then go through the legal process later because it's an emergency. So that's one way it benefits citizens of Mooresville, right?
Yeah, and it may actually help your businesses downtown when they're filing insurance claims. They might be able to now demonstrate to their insurance carriers, look, the town has declared this an emergency. We have it, and that might further support the claims that they make with our own carriers for help in recovery.
The other thing it could do, so for example, the chief of police has asked about being able to hire additional help from an outside agency or a private security firm to guard the downtown while the downtown is closed. This makes it a little easier for him to do that, does it not? Or am I wrong about that?
I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
Okay, so our police chief has been concerned about being able to man the downtown with officers and guard the downtown as the downtown's closed from people who wander in to a dangerous situation, or perhaps theft because the downtown's virtually empty. So he's been concerned about being able to hire help from an outside agency to be able to guard the downtown. This makes it easier for him to do that, correct?
Yes, there are provisions in the emergency management statutes, the sections of the Indiana Code that address that address other jurisdictions coming in and offering assistance. And by the council taking this step now, it protects actions that are taken under that code.
And I also feel like this makes it so we don't have to have a meeting every time someone that's in trouble asks for help. Am I wrong about that?
What do you mean by who's in trouble?
A citizen or a business owner, building owner, we, as an example, allowing contractors in before the permits are physically issued to get them going, and then, the building inspector's aware of that. He'll be issuing permits as time permits, but he doesn't want to keep the downtown closed any longer than it has to be. So he's working with the downtown businesses to get them open.
Yeah, I think that would fall under the provision that's addressing construction, essential construction.
Yeah.
So it is circumventing our UDO then?
No.
No, you can't do that.
It allows them
You're
to
not
start.
circumventing it, but I'm sorry.
It allows them to start and then go to the UDO because of a disaster.
Yes.
It doesn't allow them to circumvent the UDO or remonstrance or any of that, right?
Correct. It does not allow you to circumvent other sections of the code. It's just the emergency management statute understands that certain actions need to be taken in order to make your town safe and whole again. And by declaring this local emergency, you can follow provisions that are authorized under that statute. I'm trying to think just off the cuff which ones would be inconsistent and what we're concerned about, but you can't, like the guy who wants to now put up a 120-foot tower, he can't do that. He has to go before DCA and request that. But he could, if council authorizes it, he could put up a temporary tower.
And do so legally.
And do so legally, because you've authorized it.
I want to get it on the record that the reason I didn't declare an emergency on my own is because, quite frankly, this comprehensive emergency plan we had was so incoherent, I couldn't tell if it gave me the authority to do it or not. In one section it seemed as it did, in another section it didn't. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't overstepping my role in involving the rest. I wanted to involve the rest of the council. I also want to make sure we give the other council members time to ask questions because we've kind of hogged the microphone. So I want to make sure the other three get a say.
Crickets.
This is Councilman Stanley. Beth, real quick, I'm reading through these documents as fast as I can. I apologize. It mentions individuals that are not insured. Is that correct? That the insurance should be the first line of
Councilman Cook, was that you?
Yeah, I said it sounds like we're making it harder than it is. I mean, it sounds pretty simple, straightforward to me.
Yeah, you can either declare this now and you're done, or you can deny it and vote against it, and we can be back here in a few weeks if you deplete all your resources.
Councilwoman
And I
Hester?
motion we approve the proclamation as written.
I'm sorry?
Okay, so Councilman Cook makes a motion to approve the Town of Mooresville Local Emergency Disaster Proclamation. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Councilwoman Hester seconds. Is there any more discussion? Is there anybody from the audience that would like to have any input? In either room, I guess I should say. Okay, seeing none, we'll do a roll call. All in favor, vote. Dustin Stanley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Dustin Stanley votes aye. Jessica Hester, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jessica Hester votes aye. Jeff Cook, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jeff Cook votes aye. Tom Moreland, how do you vote?
Aye.
Tom Moreland votes aye, and Shane Williams votes aye. The motion passes. Okay, so next on the agenda would be, we were approached by two business owners, Eric Rogers from TBS Wireless. He is in the second room. Eric, would you mind approaching the microphone? Just bear with us as he makes his way into the room. Thank you.
A little bit of a delay.
That's okay. There is a little tiny bit of delay, so I'm going to move this close.
Sure.
Would you state your name and just the nature of your request?
Sure. My name's Eric Rogers. I'm the president of PDS Connect. Not PDS Wireless. We changed it about 7 years ago.
Sorry, buddy.
No, you're fine. So in the tornadoes that came through, essentially we had significant damage done to the tower. Obviously it's still standing, but we have to rebuild. And that was essentially my request to you guys is I'm trying to figure out the best course of action to rebuild what we have. But if we do that and the building is not structurally sound, we haven't gone through a complete engineering study, and that's what we're waiting on. So because of the COVID crisis, we have to provide services to thousands of people in this community. And we're trying to make sure that we do that without an outage. So it's very complex, dealing with the insurance and the engineering. So what my original proposal was to rebuild the tower at the police station that we just purchased, the old police station, but extending it up from the original height to the 120 feet. But I think I got my answer a little bit from earlier. So
I just had a couple questions
Yes, sir.
for you. You're wanting to take the tower that is an 80-foot tower, am I correct, on your building?
correct, it's 80 foot currently, and we're gonna be moving it just 2 blocks away, so it's out of the downtown area, and building a 120 foot tower essentially. And the difference in height is because we're going from a very high point in the town to a lower point where the offices currently are. So we had to compensate for the trees, and plus there's also a variation of angles that we'd have to reach our towers outside of town.
But you'd be going from 2 towers to 1,
Correct.
because you had one.
We have the one downtown, and then we have the one at the offices that used to be the police station. Correct.
That's all my questions. Do any other members of the council have questions?
I don't believe that we can, Jeff, I'm sorry, getting closer. I don't believe that we can, go against, or planning and zoning, obviously. I think you fought a little bit of a battle the first time, and we got through that with no problem.
Sure.
But it does, there are specific findings of fact that the BZA would, and one of them is, do the surrounding property owners feel like anything that you would do on your property would adversely affect the value of their property?
Sure.
And I just don't think we can make that call. I don't think that's our job, and I think Mrs. Copeland or Ms. Copeland said the same thing. Is that correct?
Yes, I agree.
In the law. So we can allow him to construct something temporarily, correct?
Yes, now that you have unanimously decided to sign the proclamation and move forward declaring an emergency, that allows you to authorize the construction of a temporary tower until such time as they go before the BZA and make their request.
Would it allow the tower at the new height? If it's temporary?
I'm sorry, would it allow the tower at
Would it allow the tower?
the new height?
Yes, even though it's temporary. That's the point of his request.
Are they asking, I'm sorry, is he asking to put up a 120-foot temporary tower? I
Yeah.
thought that was for the permanent one.
The idea would be that it would start as a temporary, but it turn into, once we've completed the BZA process.
I'm not for that at all. I'm sorry. I still think we have surrounding people that would, that need to be contacted. You got to send out your 640 feet or 2
Okay.
property owners. I'm sorry.
All right. So in
And I'm
my,
sorry that I don't know your zoning ordinance well enough to know that it is a 150-foot request within the height standards.
I don't think they are. They
Because
can.
if it exceeds the height standards that are allowed, you cannot grant that request. That would be inconsistent with your zoning ordinance.
I think you can only approve what was there before as a temporary height. Might ask the lady, the attorney, you can approve what was there before, 60-foot tower or 80-foot, whatever it was. I don't think,
Who's talking or what they're saying, Shane?
Okay, come up, please.
Tim Bennett, I think you guys can approve, hey, what was there before. The attorney can correct me if I'm wrong. You can't approve anything above the height that it was before as a temporary tower, even under the declaration of an emergency. Is that correct?
I think it would be against public policy if you would do that. I think the proclamation may allow it, but I don't think it would be good public policy to do that.
Because we have fall distances and everything else of this tower, right? That we have to consider, the BZA should consider with any additional height at all.
Anything, yes, any rebuild that would be permanent absolutely needs to go before your BZA. Because you have to ensure that it's within conformity of all of the standards, not only the height standards, but there may be other issues that have to be considered here that, whether it's how close it is to a right of way. There's so many other decisions you think about once now you have a legally non-conforming, structure, the word I'm looking for.
Right, and to allow him to do that at 120 feet now, and then to go into the BZA and get turned down, that would be a problem that he would have.
That would be a very expensive problem for him, yes.
And then
He would have to tear down something that the BZA is not going to allow. Versus if he put up if he replaces in a temporary what was already there,
Right.
he can expend the funds later to increase it if BZA allows it.
Right. Okay.
he could claim failure to grant the variance would create a hardship at that point in time.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Something about hardship.
If he was able to build the temporary now, he could claim that failure to grant a variance would create a hardship, financial hardship. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know that it's a variance, because I don't know that the height standard is, the height standard may be allowed under your zoning ordinance. And if it is, he doesn't need a variance, he just has to go through the steps of the BZA.
Okay.
If he didn't need a variance, he could have claimed it.
Well, no, what she's saying is it could be a non-conforming, it may not be the height, it may be a non-conforming use.
So when we originally applied for the variances on this, there were setbacks, and that was what we had requested. That's how we got the tower in the downtown to begin with.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I was asking for on this, because there was already a tower, we're looking at extending it. So both towers were destroyed essentially. The one that's downtown is structurally needs to be removed.
Is it still functioning?
Yeah.
'Cause
That's
I knew
what
you had a
serves the
generator
community.
running. I knew you had a generator running just for that.
Yeah, and if that tower goes down, we'd have thousands down. And again, during this crisis and it being an essential service, I mean, it has to be up. So we're trying to find a course of action. So we've already brought in a temporary tower that we can at least put up in the parking lot, that we could move equipment to destroy the current one. But we're trying to figure out the best course of action. Under the new TIA code, the new standards of construction, we would have to significantly increase the beef on that tower. So I don't want to build something bigger than what we already have, fatter basically, especially in the downtown area. We tried to keep it low profile to begin with. So the idea was to move it to another location that also got destroyed, and instead of just putting back the 60 foot that was there, extending that one up to the 120.
Shane, if I might, when is the next BZA meeting?
We're not having that.
In other words, how quickly could he get this on how quickly could he get on their agenda?
We currently don't have it scheduled. Because of the pandemic, they have canceled their meetings.
Indefinitely?
Yeah. They've kind of been looking to see if they have something coming in and then making a decision, is my
Well, it sounds like they
understanding.
might. The only reason I asked that question is because, again, I wonder how much we're overcomplicating this. If the BZA set a meeting in the near future, could this issue actually be resolved through the proper channels of going through them sooner than you guys continuing to debate the issue?
Quick, next few
Okay.
weeks. We gotta make a decision as to whether we're rebuilding what we got and beef.
But you don't even have anyone here yet for the structure to even see if you could rebuild it.
I've already got 2 quotes on tower reconstruction.
No, but I mean, you said you were waiting on structural
I need to get
engineers.
Structural engineers to look at the building, yeah.
He said he has next few weeks, so 2 to 3.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta purchase and then the tower's gotta be engineered itself. It's not like you just order one off the shelf. I mean, they actually engineer.
Radio Shack's closed.
Right.
dang it.
So, yeah. There's a significant process that we're trying to go through, and I'm trying to get this ahead of time. So that was hence the quick request.
Well, I hope you understand. I appreciate the service you do, but I also appreciate
Yeah.
the
Well, I
policies
wouldn't
the way
want
they're set.
somebody to shove something through and my neighbor to do something without going through the proper channel. So I understand, but I'm just trying to find next course of action.
Any other comments by the council? So,
Wait for BZA, or are they going to have an emergency meeting?
yeah, we can, I guess, put him in contact with them and see if they can get him going.
Well, I think we can, Jewel can probably set up a meeting for them.
Yeah.
But I think he would still have to we need to find out what he would have to do as far as sending out notices and everything like that. That's the problem. Now we gotta do all the notices for, the distance or two adjoining property owners. And then we have to make arrangements for them to be able to, remonstrate, should they. It's 80 feet is, what's another 40 feet gonna do to them? And I think he said, we gotta consider the fall zone or the crumple zone or.
All the packets are downstairs in the treasurer's office,
Mhm.
right, Diane? They're still available. So you have to make arrangements with Diane or somebody in her office to get the packet. To start filling it out, and that'll tell you when the date for the next meeting is, and
Would you please look to see exactly what he would have to do to be in compliance? I'm assuming that this would go before them because it's a non-compliance.
I understand that you're saying that you think, or somebody thinks he needs to go to the BCA.
But I want to make sure because I don't want him to jump through a bunch of hoops that aren't correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute, so you have the variance now,
Yes,
and it's stated it's an 80-foot tower?
yes.
He's got to go to BCA. That's
Okay.
simple. His
No,
variance
he's
now
going to
says-
change locations also.
No,
Well, so we're looking at building a tower at the old police
yeah,
station.
but that's where your variance is, right?
No, the
No.
variance is right here with the tower on top of the building.
So how did you get the tower down there?
It came with the
Came
building,
with the building.
1996.
And now it's still there, right?
Nope,
No idea.
It's gone?
laying in the parking lot. Storm got it.
Yeah.
I would just tell him. Jeff, sorry about that. Tim Metzger and Eric are.
Tim who?
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, just a minute.
Tim Bennett. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, my bad. I thought he said I got nothing.
So can we get him a packet before he leaves?
That's a variance packet, is that what we're talking about that he needs?
Yeah, I don't know that he needs one, but yeah. Give him that and plan commission, and I'll get with you the next couple of days, and one of those will be right.
Put that on your list.
That
So
it?
we've got a plan.
I think so. All right, thank you.
I hope so.
No.
The next, we did, what's that, Jeff?
I think we couldn't hear.
You couldn't hear what the plan is?
No.
Basically, he's going to go to BZA.
Okay. All right.
So we're not taking a vote tonight, I guess. So that's kind of what's going to happen. We're going to get him a packet and see what they can get done.
Okay, but you just have a temporary one up at the location right now, Maine and Indiana, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. We also had an email from Hallie Minot and 5 East. Is it going to be the same problem? Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it, but I don't know if we have the authority to overrule
Shane,
it.
I don't know who that is. Shane, I don't know who that is talking, but he needs to have the phone in front of him.
Okay, sorry. Trying to stay 6 feet away, sorry.
He calls from your phone?
Nope, I'm right here next to Shane now, sorry. Go ahead, you want to explain that?
So what she was trying to do, Hallie Minot has 5 East. Her building's damaged, so she was trying to move to her other location, which has some restrictions on what it can be used. It's a wedding barn, and it can be used so many times a year for a wedding. So she wanted to move her operations. Of course, right now during COVID, she can't have events anyway, but she was trying to get some kind of permission to operate out of there in case the COVID restrictions were released and she could go ahead and schedule events after that. But is it the same issue then that she would need to request some kind of variance?
I'm sorry, I don't know that I followed everything that you just said.
Wouldn't that be a code enforcement issue?
It would be, but it's outside of the town of Mooresville.
What township is it in? Is it in Brown?
It is in Brown Township.
It went through our plan commission.
It went through our, because of
And a
the
buffer.
non-jurisdictional. The issue, Ms. Copeland, the issues are
Yes,
when the property where she wants to change locations to, there was quite a bit of remonstrance on the location. It is a modern day wedding barn. In order to get the zoning, they made several voluntary commitments and restrictions on it. And they were limited number of events, limited number of people, security, restrooms, everything like that. Now what she's asking for is a special exception to be able to move the events that she would have had at 5 East Main out to this location and not comply with those voluntary commitments, restrictions, and conditions.
no, this isn't even an issue for town council. This is an issue for the Board of Zoning Appeals. You guys just adopted a proclamation that allows construction for essential needs. This is not that.
Okay. So we'll have to refer her on as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Honestly, we'll probably sort of check with me. We'll figure that out.
Okay. It may not even be an issue with COVID-19. They may have her building back by then anyway. Department head reports, do you have anything to report tonight?
Unless you'd like to hear more about what we did during the night of the tornado.
Okay.
Basically, during the night of the tornado, we got called out, as many people as we could get out, along with the fire department. We blocked off all four intersections of the downtown, and then did help the fire department with the assistance of going, building to building to make sure that there was no injuries or anybody that was trapped or anything in the buildings. Other than that, do you have any specific questions that you would like me to address? Other than that, what I talked to you about as far as providing security, we're down-staffed. It's a struggle to find people to stationary down there 24/7. So I'm just trying to see, is there any way we can get some way of, a reimbursement to getting an outside agency, getting a security firm, something. I don't know how long that would be. JD would probably have a better idea of how long we might be continuing to do that service.
Council, this is Division Chief Robinson, JD Robinson. We're going to have somebody downtown for the foreseeable future until the construction process really gets going. Simply to keep people out of the downtown area because folks want to come in, take pictures, see what happened. We had a hard enough time the day after, on Thursday of last week, there was way too many people down there, and we were sort of...
And we had two people 24/7 there for a couple of days.
Right, and we were still sort of short-staffed in that respect. We've put school buses, everybody's seen the school buses and the tape and the fences and everything, but that's still sort of not enough for right now. Now, hopefully, once the construction process starts, hopefully within the next few days, week, and Tim Bennett and I have been in constant communication as far as finding this information out, but it's just sort of slow-moving, waiting on insurance companies and contractors to sort of get that process started. Hopefully, once it does start, we can sort of at least get access to downtown available again by just shutting the sidewalks down and maybe the parking spaces along the streets. And then hopefully within the next week, 10 days, we won't need security like we've had over these last few days.
What would it hurt to, I mean, you know, I know we've talked about, hey, let's pump the brakes on spending, but is it the people are just wore out and don't? And
That's
don't
what
wanna
I
come
don't
in?
want to get into,
Okay.
where we're really burning out our people. Because we got people now that are already working 16-hour days doing part-time security other places. And then some of them are coming in, I know Sergeant McGoy, he's like 3 times this week, he's doing the midnight shift and then working his day shift. He's not doing that on Friday, but I don't want to get my people to where they're just burnt out.
What if we paid the overtime to a fireman? Had them come in one of the, like the Subaru, the support vehicle, or something like that?
We gave the Subaru back.
Okay.
So, we don't have the manpower to do that. And since we work 24-hour shifts, I've just assumed not have our guys downtown just hanging out.
Okay.
Just to give you a little bit of idea, if you go with another agency, I know most part-time security, they're running anywhere from 30 to 35 an hour.
Right.
That's a big chunk of money, not to mention our overtime is close to that anyway. Your security firms, you're gonna pay $20 to $25 an hour, and Dustin can correct me if I'm wrong, in that time frame to have just a security person down there, and they could call us if needed.
Right, and that would probably be your better course of action if you had to have somebody with arrest powers, which there's only a couple guys that I know on Mooresville Fire Department that are reserve officers. So you would, I think, lean more towards a security firm and a firm, or maybe the Morgan County Sheriff's Department. Because there's all kinds of guys that you can get all kinds of contract employees that have police powers. I mean, they do it in Marion County all the time, guys watching trucking.
The town marshal in Brooklyn,
Yes.
he has a security firm. I know Councilman Stanley, I believe, has a security firm. So, I mean, you could ask him for a little bit of his expertise on that.
Right.
And I'm not going one way or the other. I just want some resources or some options to where I don't get my guys burnt out. That's all I'm asking for.
Well, you not only have a burnout issue, but you have it sounds like you're gonna have officers that might be working towards police supplies, which creates safety hazards for them too.
Exactly.
Have you contacted other jurisdictions? Because the emergency disaster statute that you guys just activated because you adopted the proclamation allow other jurisdictions to come within your community and work. And they have the same police powers and the same immunities that they would if they were in their own jurisdiction.
Since we're declared.
Well, I guess my question on that, are you talking about available officers for other jurisdictions where they're getting paid by their agency, or if they're getting paid by the town of Mooresville?
I would need to confirm, I suspect by the town of Mooresville, I would need to confirm that. I would need
He's
to
not doing
confirm
anything
that
anyway.
what the statute actually says, but I know that it's allowed. I have to think you guys want.
Do you have any comment on that, Mark? Do you know?
That downtown
Everyone
area,
knew
they
that
have
before?
police powers, because
No, I would
if
think the
something
sheriff's
happens or
department
somebody needs
That's
to
who
be
I would reach out
arrested.
to.
would be interested in part-time work.
Oh, they are. I've already talked to.
Yeah, that's it. Honestly, Beth, I think our best course of action would probably reach out to the Morgan County Sheriff's Department. They've probably, I don't know.
I've already
if
talked to
yeah,
Sheriff Myers, and
I'm sure they'd
he
be
would
one
put
to
out the
help.
word to get additional people. It's just, I guess, my question to the town council is that funding source. How are we gonna go about reimbursing them? I guess would be the question.
Well, this is also one of the reasons why,
Get your checkbook out.
this is one of the reasons why, it was so important that you guys adopted, the council adopted the proclamation tonight. Because if resources are going to be depleted, that is when we can go to the county EMA and or then go to the state.
Yeah, that makes
Kevin,
sense.
where are you at on your overtime budget? And what did you say the time limit was to have an officer in the downtown area? What do you think it would be done with that?
We don't really even know.
As far as the overtime budget, I haven't been able to get a recent appropriation list. The clerk's office is inundated, and they're working on a skeleton crew anyway, so they've not been able to get that to me, and I understand why. We're fine, we're at the beginning of the year, we're fine as far as that. It's the only issue I have is burning out the people. And if we could come up with a way to fund.
And Jeff, this is JD. We honestly can't answer that intelligently right now without knowing anything from the contractors, to have any sort of time frame about how long this is going to take to mitigate this problem downtown. You know what I mean? Simply because we just don't have any information to give you right now, simply because we just don't have it.
What about the officers that would normally work? Well, that's during the day. You're just mainly talking? Are you talking 24/7? Or are you talking?
We've been doing
night?
24/7. Now the night shift, they've been stacked pretty good a couple of nights, so they've covered on regular shift.
Okay.
I've had a couple of reserves cover some shift, and they're not getting any reimbursement whatsoever. And then other officers have stepped in and were actually overtime. Now, granted, I know guys like overtime and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, once you get to that point where you're working 16 hours 3 or 4 times a week, that's a little.
What about the
much.
guys that would normally be working at the school? Are they still working?
They are working, but they have quit working those, and they are working these shifts
found
now.
others.
Yes, because the school is still allowing them to come in, work their shift, and get paid. But some of those have not did that, and they're coming over and working these shifts here for the security.
Can they get paid by the school and work our shifts?
I'm not going to answer that one.
Jeff?
What about the reserves, Kevin?
They have come out, but the reserves also work some part-time security, and so they're not available all
I like
the
where your
time.
head's at, though.
And with our short staff, some of those reserves are actually covering actual shifts.
Could the
Is
street
that
guys
any
do
other
it?
questions that you have?
Can the street guys do it?
Huh?
Can the street guys do it if they have a radio and can call you?
Yeah.
Because they're calling me right now, I'll do it. So,
I mean,
As long as everybody's fine with it, all they
don't
need
care.
to know is if they have a problem with somebody that's not following their instructions, they call us and we'll come deal with it. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever, as long as you
I'm
guys are
okay with
comfortable
it.
with
I
that,
mean-
and JD's comfortable.
I
with
mean,
that.
I'll even put it out to our guys too, just to throw it out there to them, just to give them the option.
I've got it scheduled through this
I mean-
Friday, so that way we've got a couple of days we can make those arrangements and get adjustments.
Okay.
Is that cool with you?
absolutely,
Okay.
let me know what you need, I got. Guys.
As long as everybody's got a radio to communicate, it should be fine.
Did you hear that? They're wanting to send street department employees down to the downtown and watch, and then if there's an issue, they alert the police right then. Does that sound reasonable?
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I don't have to charge. I'll talk to him about that later.
I got a question.
From a liability
Also,
standpoint,
probably the same one.
concerned having street department person patrolling.
They're just being a security guard, that's all they're.
Yeah, they're not patrolling.
They're an alert system, that's it.
Essentially, they're just eyes and ears, and that's it.
So we're putting them in, I don't know,
I see your point. You're
What's
sort
your
of
point?
we're putting them in harm's way if something were to happen.
it's a public safety responsibility to put that on a street department person, and that just seems dangerous.
Well, and
I couldn't agree more.
and Director Toomey.
I hear that as well.
Director Toomey just brought up something that we might consider, and it might save us some money even. If we do some sort of mutual aid with some other departments around our area, maybe say, hey, can you come pick up a shift here, pick up a shift there, whether it's Plainfield or Metro, Indy Metro, whether it's, Johnson County, who knows? If we can do some sort of mutual aid agreement and get it paid for somehow through our town to reimburse them,
Which is
or even,
one of my options. that
yeah, I
I
would,
think would be an option.
I mean, that way you do have a public safety officer there versus someone from the streets.
Yeah, and by luck, I literally just pulled up the Indiana Code statute from 14.316 that talks about mutual aid arrangements.
That's why they pay you big
better
bucks.
option. We explore that, and we can do that tomorrow. I just don't think it's a safe idea to put, they know be no different than council members going and sitting downtown and calling the police. That just seems incredibly dangerous.
Do we get a gun?
Katie, after
Well, I'm not sure at my first council meeting if I should authorize you guys to carry guns.
federal government came out and said, if you want any federal money through grants, then you have to have a mutual aid agreement with every other department within your state or the United States. So if you guys are at the end of your resources, you can call for mutual aid from anybody, and they can't turn you down.
Shane, if someone's talking, that's not here.
Come on up and explain that.
After 9/11, federal government came out and said every state has to have mutual aid agreements within their state. If you don't have a mutual aid agreement, then you have to, in writing, opt out of that mutual aid agreement. If you opt out, then you forfeit any federal grant funding through your state. So what that means is, during a disaster or emergency, if your town or city is crying uncle, they're out of resources, they can hit for mutual aid from another department, and if they can spare that manpower, they have to send it by state statute. So you could reach out to all the local police departments and go, can you cover and do 8-hour shifts? Can you cover these shifts? And they would do a response as mutual aid under that act if they didn't opt out of the mutual aid agreement back in
Under that response
2002.
of mutual aid, would their department be the responsible agency as far as their compensation?
Right, it's just like when you call for mutual aid from another fire department and they come in, then they fall under your insurance, your jurisdiction, and their department pays them. So I would reach out to the other police departments, tell them you're in a bad shape because of this. You're only gonna need somebody for what, a week? So
30 days from what,
We don't, like I said, we don't know.
Plainfield's working 2 weeks on
I
and
think
2
it's gonna
weeks
be a
off.
longer week as well.
And they're paying their officers.
I think it's gonna be
So that would be an
So
option.
we could, if you got a relationship with Plainfield, you could call them. I mean, I think we've got a good relationship with everyone,
We do
mutual
have a good
aid.
relationship, it's just, you know,
Everyone's-
compensation and whether they got the manpower. I guess my other thing is, to my knowledge, I know of no mutual aid agreement, at least with my agency, with any other agency I've ever done. To my
I have
knowledge.
an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with another department.
Well, I
know
think,
that a lot of departments have MOUs with other departments to cover these sorts of things.
I think you guys have backed up every agency around us and they've done the same for you guys.
Yes,
I think maybe it's not written, but I know that, I don't know of anyone that you've not got along with.
I think they're right.
Beth, this is Chief Robinson again. Would we be able to do a situation like a fire watch with fire department personnel?
Say that again, would you be what?
Could we do a situation like a fire watch if somebody had a radio to contact the police department with on-duty fire or off-duty firemen? Can we do that, or do you still don't think that's the best course of action?
Well, your firemen don't have police powers either.
Okay, I see.
Security guard didn't have.
Yeah.
I can tell you from firsthand experience that when we went through a tornado in Kokomo, there were other jurisdictions here not only helping with police and fire, but there were trash trucks
So we need other policemen.
from even the state of Ohio sent over trash trucks to help us pick up debris. So I know that this is possible, and I know we can work through this. I'm not sure that it needs to be explored a lot with council because you're not asking council to vote on anything. But I do, council has done their job. They declared the local emergency. So I think if we, perhaps recess and talk tomorrow further about this, that we can figure out what the next best step is. But I do firmly believe you need persons down there that have police powers.
Does anybody have any other questions for me?
Nope, you're good. Thank you very much. I got one comment, and I think everyone will say it. Thank you. Thank you. Both of you guys, both departments did an outstanding job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You need a motion to adjourn.
Okay, that ends the agenda, so The next meeting date, well, first of all, any other council members have any comments? I don't want to cut them off. Next meeting date is Tuesday, April 21st of 2020. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Worthing's made a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? I heard Stanley's first, Stanley seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. All in favor of adjournment, Justin Stanley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Justin Stanley votes aye. Jessica Hesser, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jessica Hesser votes aye. Jeff Cook, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jeff Cook votes aye. Tom Worthing, how do you vote?
Aye.
Tom Worthing votes aye, and Shane Williams votes aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
You're the only person in this meeting.